Yeah, I think it's important to set yourself a goal, as we were just talking about. If you think, well, I'll look at my work in 3 months and see what the best piece of work is, do that, you know, and if there's nothing there, give yourself another 4 weeks, and even if you do it for yourself or do it for someone else, you know, make one good piece of work. You might be working in a place where you're not actually doing much and you're not that happy, but just keep moving on and think, well, I'd like to know how to do I'd like to do a front cover of a magazine or something, because I haven't done one for a while or whatever. Just do it for yourself, really, is what I'm saying. So you're moving on all the time rather than just going through the motions. And if you haven't done enough web work or banners or something, try and set yourself a little brief to move yourself on, really. You may not have it in your portfolio, but at least you'll have gone through that process. So if it comes up as a question, you know, you'll be able to answer it by going back over your work. And the other thing is, I'd say, always keep notes of names and telephone numbers, because you're going to need a lot of people to help you when you get busy. Photographers, illustrators, printers, anybody. And when a job is needed, that's when you should be so busy being creative that you'll need these people, and you have to call them up. And sometimes they're not there, so you have to call up someone else. So it's important to keep notes when you're, you know, starting up.
Can I take another question? Yep, can we have the mic on the front row, please?
Can I ask you, what are the basic skills of art director? What do you expect from art director as his basic and most important skills?
Vincent, can I ask you to take that one?
What are the basic skills of art directors? Well, you know, it's a funny thing, because when I started, there used to be commercial artists and visualizers, and then there became art directors, and everybody wanted to be an art director. Sounds much better than being a visualizer or a storyboard artist. And so all the designers, graphic designers, graduated to being art directors, junior art directors or senior art directors or creative directors at the top. But I think it's a multitasking thing, but you do need to have one abiding talent. That could be typography, it could be layout, editorial, it could be concepts, you know, little ideas, it could be, I don't know, web design or something. And you bring a lot of other things into the party, because you're combining a lot of people and a lot of different elements. And you're sort of like the centre of the thing as it's happening, really. So the skills are many and varied, but you need to have one. I mean, drawing, actually, to me is key, because sometimes you just have a second to show someone, just a friend, your idea, and you don't have an afternoon to do a beautiful presentation. So that's always been key to me. But you know, being aware of what's going on. You know, I think you need 3 A levels. Somebody said, be aware, alive, and attentive, or something. You know, just keep an eye on things. Really.
So my first job when I left uni was more of an art director kind of creative role. So as well as the sort of the concept side, it was a lot about sort of the overall direction of the work. And there is, I mean, what's happened nowadays is the art director kind of thing has kind of gone more creative side. But I was really lucky in the sense that obviously I came to this university, and it's kind of taught from the sort of the ground, in the sense that you learn old school art direction skills. And that for me is really just like a real keen sort of interest in play. You play with layout, you play with possibilities. I used to buy the layout pads, and one of the great things is just learning to, you know, drop in your copy, know how big it would roughly be by just drawing it in size, cutting it up, moving it around the page, playing with your copywriter, learning how bodies of text can sit around things, and with it, and doing this all with pen and pencil, because those principles seem to be incredibly sort of useful. And with the sort of advent of Photoshop and things like that, there is this sort of idea that I've met with a lot of art directors I've kind of come across who've put it all together on Photoshop. And it's like, well, you've plonked things together on Photoshop, and when it hasn't worked, you've fudged it. You know, there's the great thing of just sitting there with layout pads and knowing those skills and knowing how to just, you know, control your pen to sort of quickly put something up and then, no, I'll trace over that but do it here. I think that interest of play is so crucial with any form of, even from digital, because I still, even though I now do digital, I still storyboard things, and I will still sit there and work out actually how it should go, and like you're saying, the speed of which you can draw, it's incredibly crucial, because I've been in pitches and meetings and I've tried to sort of convey an idea, and people have been sitting around and no one's really getting it, and you just go, right, give me, you know, board, and you're up on the board, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's easy, yeah, we could do that for you. So I think pen skills it sounds really old-fashioned, but it's still something I think makes an art director stand out.
I mean, on the back end of that, I was at Oasis TV last year, and I went down particularly to look at a system called Lightworks, which is the very latest in editorial and TV production. That I was sitting there with this guy, and we had television screens the width of this room, and he's doing stuff for Shell and all this sort of stuff going on. I was like this, you know. And he said, tell me, he said, how many hours a week do your students do life drawing? And I swallowed quickly. I said, not many. He said, oh, it's a pity. He said, because if you can't draw, you can't do this stuff. And I think that sort of somehow to me summed it all up. You know, you've got this guy with the very, very latest technology, and he's talking about doing charcoal drawings in the life studio. And I think that probably sums it up in terms of, you know, the breadth that you need to be working on. Next question, please. Yep. Just pass back to.
Just kind of the same question, really, but more on the like copywriting side. So, like, you know, skills to improve yourself, copywriting.
Wow.
I can give it a go.
No copywriters here.
No, he's too busy in London.
You know something? It's much of the same in terms of having those raw abilities and just being able to scamp things down. I mean, I was going to add on to the back of the art direction question, in the sense that from the agency point of view, what a creative director will be looking at and looking for, they love seeing scamps. They love seeing, you know, a pen and ink drawing on a piece of paper, because they colour it in, you know, quite simply. You know, they'll see an idea, they'll see something, and they'll think, wow. You know, and they'll just move with it. Whereas, you know, you get a final piece, given it like your D&AD stuff, for example, there's no movement for that. It's finished, it's done, that's it, that's the idea. It's not going to move on from that. And there's like a finality to it. Whereas, you know, with a pen and paper, you can go anywhere with it. It's the same with writing as well, and copywriting. Explore the parameters of the possibility, you know, what's out there, what can you write? Again, with the art direction, you're moving the copy around for the art direction side. Do the other way around. You know, get the copy to work, or get the art direction to work around the copy. You know, and it works in the same way, and either one can lead, really. It just depends what kind of campaign you're looking to do, what you want to say. It might be that the best campaign is, well, for a copywriter, is no words at all. But that's the copywriter's decision. Or it might be 3 paragraphs of writing, but again, that's the copywriter's decision, and that's where sort of learning about your art, and it is an art, copywriting is an absolute art, and if you go back, you know, 10, 20, 30 years, you know, the writers from the heyday were phenomenal writers, and they were craftsmen like you've never seen before. And a lot of feedback that I get nowadays from creative directors is, unfortunately, that art has lost a little. You know, in terms of they just don't get the flair and the excellence of the writing anymore, and it's something that they would love to see. So just try everything, really.
Yeah, but I'd just say when I was at Ogilvy, so a lot of famous writers just left or were there. Salman Rushdie was there, who was writing ads. And he said in one of his interviews that it was really good for him to be there for a few years. I know he's written all these famous books now, but you know, you had to actually produce something that day, that morning, for whatever. It kind of forced him to be a writer in a way on the clock. Faye Weldon was there writing stuff, and a lot of people had come to advertising through like local journalism, or they were poets. But I think now people tend to come